Inside Improv with Stacy Halal, Joe Bill, Elise Rodriguez, and special guest, Fena Ortalli.
Yay, here we are. It is another Friday, and I don't know why the weeks usually fly by, but this week feels like it's been forever since last Friday. So welcome to Inside Improv. I'm very excited about our guest for today. But first, let's bring on our regulars, my co-hosts. First, we'll bring up Joe Bill. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hi, Stacy. I think it seemed longer because the last one we did was 2 Fridays ago.
Oh, that's why. Because we took
I think.
we took off the 4th of July. We did.
Yeah.
So
how was your 4th of July?
It was fine. We went and swam in a river with our friends and our dogs. So that was amazing on Saturday. And then Sunday is the Portland annual citywide improv slosh ball event.
What?
Oh. So slosh ball is kickball, but everyone holds, you have to hold a beer in your, or beverage. Doesn't have to be beer if you're not drinking, but you hold that's why it's called slosh ball.
Slosh ball? I love it. Who, did somebody win, or are there winners and losers?
I left before. Usually they have there's 2 fields where we gather, and there's usually the non-competitive casual game and then the competitive game. And this year, everybody played the competitive game. Well, there were some of us in the casual game, but we were so casual, we never played the game. We just wanted to talk and catch up and see each other. So, I mean, it was the first time seeing a lot of people in person post-pandemic. So that was really lovely.
Yeah,
Shout out
amazing.
to Matt Tominaga, who makes that happen. And there's a guac-off as well. So everybody brings, or not everybody, but a handful of people bring different guacamoles, and then they have to present them. And so there's some beautiful presentations of their guacamole, and then we vote on a winner.
I love it. I will come to Portland next year for that.
Yeah, the winner had a pineapple. It was actually like a relish she had made for a pork roast, and then she just took that relish, mixed in some avocado, and it was delicious.
Wow.
And the pineapple made it like stay bright green because of the citric acid in there.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it. That sounds amazing. Well, happy 4th and happy this Friday.
How was your 4th?
It was, Angie was here for a little bit, and then it was 90 something degrees, which was like 34 in Celsius. And then she went to her mom's, and then Lori they have like a big kind of a pool in the backyard, and I just stayed here, and they invited me over, but I don't go outside if it's 90. Right. That's not good for me.
Right.
So my 4th, I binged a bunch of television, and I enjoyed my hair conditioning for America.
It sounded like you said hair conditioning, and so I had this image of you with like a conditioner on your head with a nice cool beverage inside by yourself. So
I was practicing my object work for when I get back on stage with my hair conditioner.
Well, there's something else I want to discuss, but first let's bring on Elise Rodriguez. Hi, Elise.
Oh, we get in the center of my little square here.
Yeah.
There I am.
There you go. We have seen each other in person since the last Inside Improv. That's how long it's actually been. So it was so great to have you here.
It was so great for you to have me there too.
And everyone needs to know that I live in Portland. I'm surrounded by a lot of witchy people and woo-woo people, but the powers carried by Elise Rodriguez cannot be denied. First off, we picked her up in the big van.
Love it.
Yeah, just to give her the full treatment.
Cool.
And the microwave just started vibrating and coming out of its spot, which has never happened before. Lights flickered.
That happens around me anywhere I go. Lights start to flicker, things turn on. It's just a thing.
I love it.
Yeah. And Elise, I have tried to do the thing you were doing with Stanley with my hands, but there's no, like, I'm sure when you do it, there's powers shooting out of your hands like WandaVision, but when I do it, he's just like, doesn't even notice. Doesn't even notice. Tried to steal your play style and he's not buying it. So, but before we bring on our wonderful guest, I do want to mention, because I am so excited about it, that two people we had on here recently, Wendy Mateo and Lorena Diaz Dwyer. They have become artistic directors in Chicago it's Teatro Vista, and they are now co-artistic directors of that theater.
And it's an equity theater. It's the equity theater that's like the home of Latino, Latina, Latinx.
Amazing.
Yeah. And well, I talked to Lori. So as Wendy tells the story, so they go walking in on their first day and there's like people there kind of waiting to see what they want to do. And Lori walks in the room and she says, "Get everything out of here." And I thought of Elise. I'm like, "Get everything out of here." What do you mean? Get everything out of here. And Wendy's like, "Just do it."
Yeah.
Just do it. Everything, like off the walls, everything, get it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Elise helped us do a little of that as well with she facilitated some restructuring, and I've been throwing all of our things out, and it's going to be a real fresh start at Curious. So thank you for that, Elise. Well, let's bring on our fantastic guest, founder, editor of Improv's only magazine, as far as I know, Status Magazine, Fena Ortalli. Hi, Fena. So, must acknowledge all your fans.
Thank you for such warm welcome.
Oh, I'm so excited to see you, to chat with you. We met at Bad Dog in Toronto a few years ago now, and you are one of those people who is from one place that's international, has lived other places. So where are you currently in the world?
Right now, I'm in Madrid, Spain, and I've been living here for the past 5 years, and I like it. I love it.
And you originally you're born and raised in?
Argentina. And you were talking about Independence Day. We have today our Independence Day. It's 9th of July. Our independence from, consequently, Spain.
Yay! Which you're celebrating by living
it's payback, baby.
Yeah.
Ciao.
That's right. It's time for you to reap some rewards for that. So, yes. Fantastic. Thanks for being here. And let's start with congratulations on 10 years, Status Magazine. What sparked you to create an actual magazine for improvisers?
The idea, let's start with the fact that I love writing. I love writing fiction and nonfiction. And the first idea was to share all the information that I already had by traveling throughout Latin America. I was already traveling and visiting places and watching shows and meeting people. And I wanted for more people to know that, to know what's cooking somewhere else, because I know that the fact of traveling is not available for everyone. So every time I went back to Buenos Aires after a festival or a tour, I kept talking about what are the shows I've seen or the classes I took or the people I met, and I thought that it was a good idea to write about that and to also connect people. And I always have a lot of ideas like this, and very few are actually produced. And this was the one that it got produced. It was like, okay, let's do it. And I remember I was chatting with Gonzalo Rodrigo, from a wonderful improviser from Buenos Aires. And I said, you know what? Let's do an interview right now. Let's let's take advantage of this momentum. And we did the interview. Then I wrote 2 or 3 other articles and posted on Facebook. Hey, there's a new magazine coming. Who wants to have it? Just send an email. And the first week I had 100 emails saying, yes, I want a magazine. And it's been 10 years since that day.
That's amazing. Was it always both? Was it online, print, both at its origins?
It was always a PDF file because of the impossibility of print it and send it. Because if it was a local magazine, maybe if I would talk only about Buenos Aires, for instance, I would have printed. But the fact of printing it and then send it abroad, it will make it expensive, and it's not the idea. And actually, the first 6 years of the magazine, or 7, that were only in Spanish, it was always for free. When we started doing it in different languages, we started charging for a €10 a year subscription just to have something to work on, or especially if we needed something that we needed to purchase, like, okay, my computer broke down, I could buy a new one.
Yeah.
Very cheap one, but we did it.
Very fair. And now it seems like you post frequently, like, and now we're in this language. How many languages are you currently printing the magazine?
Right now, it's in 6 languages. We reached the peak of 7, the craziness of 7. No, 8. Sorry, 8. But then we after a year, we closed the Russian version because it was, one, a little complicated, the editing. I don't do the translations. Improvisers that help a lot do the translations, but we didn't have many subscribers in the Russian version, so it was hard to keep it up. So we had 8, and now we are 6 because we just decided to also close the German version because there's a lot of German improvisers, but they all read in English. So we actually have the same people, but reading in English the magazine. So every time that somebody from the improv universe asked me, hey, Fena, would you like to translate the magazine in this language? I said yes. And then I realized that maybe we should research the market a little to see if it's worth it, all the work behind it for the translators, and when we edit it, if it's worth it to edit it in that language. If it was easy and free, or we have the UN sponsoring us, I would print it in all the languages available, but it's hard.
It's impressive, even doing it in 6 languages. It's so awesome. What's something that surprised you now that you've been doing this for 10 years? What's been one of the biggest surprising lessons that you've learned from talking to so many wonderful improvisers from all over the world?
The thing that surprises me the most is that I always think that I will run out of people to interview. And then, of course, I don't. You get to meet new people, or you are recommended, or somebody recommends you someone, or you just happens to see a show or a class or a post or something like that triggers your curiosity. I'm a very curious person, so when I start to see someone's name a lot around, or I start to listen to the same name over and over, I immediately want to know more. And I want to translate that into, okay, let's write an article, let's do an interview. And the best thing about this is that I get to learn a lot. Every time I interview someone, or every time I read an article written by someone else, or every time I had to do a certain research for instance, the biographies that we write, it's instant, immediate knowledge. And what I like the most about it, besides the idea that I like to know things, I don't like to learn things, but I like to know things. Yeah, it's terrible. But what I like is that people would ask me about other people or about shows, or hey, do you know someone in this place, or do you know someone that is working on this subject? And I love that. I love the idea of being that pivot in which everyone can, hey, if you don't know, talk to Fena, ask him, he might know someone that can help you. And I like being that person.
I have a
It's really,
question.
it feels nice.
I have a question about. So you said that it was interesting. It piqued my interest when you said that when you hear people's names over and over again, that'll pique your interest, and you'll say, hey, maybe let's do an interview. How has that been different now that the world is online? Because I feel like before this pandemic and before we all went into the virtual world, how you hear someone's name is very different, or how someone's name gets to people's ears around the world is very different than now. So what's that been like since the pandemic started?
I think like in all the other aspects of the pandemic, it got very global, and I started to see more names, less repeated, but more names, and a lot of people that I didn't know they even existed. And that's great, because like I said, I had this fear of running out of people to interview, and now it's like, wow, there's a lot of people everywhere from places that you didn't know they were doing improvisation, or from places that I like the theater history or theater background behind it, or the cultural aspects of it, and that are pretty different from the people that we were interviewing. And for me, it's wonderful. It's also a Pandora's box. Like, you open it, and now, for better or worse, it's already open, and all the spirits are everywhere. Good and bad spirits.
Is that what the spirits sound like, John Tim? As John Tim on tech.
The bad spirits sound like that.
Oh, I'm so. So, what is the most surprising place that you've interviewed somebody from that you didn't expect there to be improv?
It was like 5 years ago or 6. Someone, I think it was Omar Galvan, recommended me. I think it was, I don't remember who recommended me the Yaraman tips from India, and I didn't know that there was improv going on in India. And connecting to what Elise said, now there's a lot of Indian improvisers all over the place, and it's great because they are taking classes, teaching, performing, playing, we interviewing them. But at that time, I remember it was like, wow, yes, wherever you put this magnifying glass, you will find improvisers. They are everywhere. Yeah. And they're not only everywhere, but they're also very productive. If it doesn't matter if they're the only person in that place, they will make it happen. And in this evolution of improvisation, it's always the same. It's someone plants the seed, and then they start creating this group, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually they split up because of artistic and personal differences, and they form 2 different schools with 2 different sets of students that they hate each other until they kill their parents in the Freudian way. They start connecting with each other. They get rid of the whole company system, and we're free to improvise with whoever we want. And that's my favorite stage.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, that's amazing that it's such a universal system. I mean, when I actually
Behavior, yeah.
Yeah, I was when I first started improvising in Portland, there were two theaters. You were not allowed to cross over from one to the other. And I was like going through divorce and big transformation in my life. And so I went back and lived with my sister for 6 months. And I was trying to decide at that time if I was going to move back to Portland, move to Chicago, or move to New York. And New York at the time was at the same phase that Portland was, even though it was a huge city. It was just UCB and Pitt had just broken off. And I was like, it may be a huge city, but it still felt like a very, small, young, green improv scene. And now, of course, everything has grown so fast. And at Curious, in every 2 to 3 years, someone will go away and they'll come back and they'll be like, I don't even recognize these faces because we're growing so fast. Even through the pandemic, we just had our in-person auditions and our first week of in-person classes, and we had students who had never improvised live come, and they were crushing it. It was way easier for them to make that transition than I thought it would be. I thought it would be much more awkward. They were excited to move.
It's crazy
from their shoulders down, but
it's of course, it's crazy for me that there's a lot of people that the first encounter with improvisation is online or was online. That never happened before. So that's a unique way of approaching the craft. So I imagine what it would feel like to watch or do improv just online and then try it in the real world and then watch an actual improv theater play. I think it would be like, and it's great, but because we will never leave that. Only this generation of future improvisers live this. I hope that nobody else lives this.
Yeah, but also I think there's a lot of online improv here to stay with the international exchange that's been created. And even more so, I would be more willing now to take a class online after the summer because I'm not stuck on Zoom 24/7, right? So a Zoom improv class won't be on top of 8 hours of working online. So I'm excited to see. I mean, when I started, it was like almost everybody started in short form. And I was one of the odd people who started with long form. And now lots of people start in short form or long form. And now it's like, well, some people start online. And a lot of people told me that they wouldn't have had the courage to start in person.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought of that. That's a good point.
Because it's one thing to be like, I hate this and click your Zoom off, which is very different than to be in a class and be like, I hate this and have to walk out and collect your things. Just be like, bye, feel really disruptive. So for sure, I think we'll continue to have some intro classes online to help make it accessible to people who maybe have more stage fright. Joe, I know you had some questions you wanted to ask about.
Yeah, just to tag on to that, like everywhere in the world, there's people that are way more introverted or that have social anxiety or just, for whatever reason, they think, I'm not an actor, I don't belong on the stage. Or a lot of times I coach people in the corporate world who had a terrible experience with either a high school or a university professor who just shut them out or shut out any desire to speak in public, and they just think I'm not a good public speaker. And even traveling around the world, you find these people, and I don't consider myself like a great beginning improv teacher because I don't have the natural joy that I think some do, but I love it when I teach an improv class and anybody can come, and then there's that one person and it's their first class. And my first thought is like, oh shit, I am the wrong person for you to have as a teacher for your first class. But okay, I treat people like actors, and I think this does have people who wouldn't be part of the mix before be introduced to people and get through just the social aspect of meeting people who are either renowned or just starting also online. And I guess My question for you, Fena, would be like in the 8 years before the pandemic, when you were interviewing people and asking them about their history or like what's going on in their life right now, or how are you finding improv? What are you working on? Is there any difference in the issues that people used to express before the pandemic versus the interviews that you're having now, and how people are responding to what's going on with you now? And those questions that you ask, are you finding, is there a shift in the mindset even of experienced improvisers, and what is it?
Yes, I think the main thing that I identify is the questioning. We were forced to question everything from the moment that, do I like this? Do I have to? For instance, a lot of people say that most of the people I interview said, I struggled at the beginning with the pandemic with doing improv online or teaching online. I didn't like it. I didn't want to, but eventually I got to do it, and now I feel comfortable with it. Most of them, if not every person I interviewed, explained the same. And also most of them, when I asked about future projects, it's like, future? What's that? So it's also, okay, let's take step by step. But also the questioning of, I don't know, and these are the moments of this rebirth moment, and like in the plots that we use, something happened, and this is the perfect moment for you to think about what you're doing. Do you like what you're doing? Are you enjoying what you're doing? And I think a lot of people had those moments, or are still having those moments, and realizing, maybe if I do this the same way, I would end up hating it. And so a lot of people say that, oh, maybe it's the perfect time to change something, to switch, to move, to travel, to not travel, to go back to my the job I had before, or do something else. So I think I would love to, since this question, I would love to review and reread all the interviews and see if I find any other connections. But most of them say the same, of the adapting and the not planning ahead. I hope the next people I interview are already thinking with more specific plans on the next 3 months, what they want to do, or if they
At least
this idea of seeing festivals that are starting to announce things that are already happening in person. Improvisers are starting to travel and post photos. Hey, look who I found after 2 years. It's beautiful, because when you travel, all improvisers are usually nice people, like a general rule. And especially because we meet for just a week. And for a week, we are all beautiful people.
we're all great. It's all fun and games. And then you get back to your cast, to the cast that you're a part of, and you're like, oh, fuck, I have so much nicer friends.
Because
I know it for a week.
It's like your summer friends or your summer love. It's so intense, and it's so beautiful and so amazing, because it's everything there, and you are all in a different place, in a different situation, in a different normality. When you get to talk and play and do improvisation all the time, and meet people from different places, that's not normal. We started taking it as normal because we do it, but that's not normal to know people everywhere. I always say, if my plane has to land somewhere else, I'm sure I know someone, and if not, I would ask Fena, and he will tell me who should I contact.
That's to speak to what you were saying about that previously as well. Like Lloyd Elquist, who's with MI West Side, he does the Epic Lloyd YouTube channel. It's had billions of views. he travels when he's doing Epic Lloyd shows and has toured around the world. And he's talked about how over the years, the prevalence of improv theaters has become more visible. Like now when he travels, he'll see posters for improv shows pretty much everywhere that he goes, and how excited he gets to actually see that growth. And like I was saying, and then like you were saying, once you start, it goes and goes and goes. And it's funny because that initial rivalry, I think, comes from like, well, we're the only ones doing it. And then all of a sudden, oh no, now there's a second person doing that. Is that going to threaten us doing that? And I always think about music venues. Like, can you imagine if a music venue is like, oh, there's this other music venue. You don't go play music at this other. I mean, Portland has hundreds of music venues, but we get this scarcity.
There's another band. There's another band doing music.
Yeah.
What?
Exactly. You can't talk to that band, and you can't go play with that band. I mean, and then our music friends here, John's part of this whole community, they all play with each other the same way that we all should be playing with each other. Every person that we know who's in a band is in literally 10 different bands, and they're all different combinations of the same people who just love each other and love creating. And
I think something that happens, like when we get too long in the improv scene and too long without a disruption in the improv scene, is that everybody starts to get very either possessive or just like invested in a very specific thing. And I've seen it happen like with house teams or with just like casts in general. Like now I'm possessive over this one show, and I've been in this show for 10 weeks straight, and why wasn't I in this one show this 11th week, you know? And I think the pandemic has kind of like wiped that slate clean. So we'll see now when we all start to get whiny and bitchy again.
Right,
I think it's I think it's that thing where, like, to a degree, and especially I think in your first even 20 years of improvising, to a degree you measure your worth by the successes that you have. And if you have successes in improvisation and with a certain group of people, then to some degree, your own self-esteem and your own sense of worth is invested in this group. So when this group goes away, it's like you literally lose a part of yourself, and you literally don't have evidence every Friday night or whatever night it is that, hey, I'm okay. And I think this is something that's, again, it's all over the world, and it doesn't matter where we're from.
And the upside of that.
Well, then go do a TV show.
Yeah.
Go do a commercial. It's there forever.
Right.
Yeah. This is improv.
It is.
It goes away.
It is. And I think it is something that I was very naive about when I started, is like, you're looking for that perfect combination. When you find it, you think it's going to last forever. And I don't know, I'm pretty jaded, in relationships, although I'm in a lovely relationship now. John Tim, I love you. But there was a point with, like, I was getting older enough. My grandparents were together 68 years. My parents were together 55 years. And so, there was that romantic notion that you're going to find that person and have that long thing. And then as you get older and don't have that, you start to go, well, I'm not going to live another 50 years, so I'm not going to have that. And then I was like, it's actually okay to have a succession of relationships. I think especially when you're an artist or somebody who transforms your life a lot, that you might end up with a succession of beautiful relationships that serve both people for a period of time until you evolve. And then that relationship needs to change and evolve. And I think it's the same thing with bands, and it's the same thing with improv teams, and even maybe a relationship with a theater.
Yay. Yeah. And once improvisers get to that point, like once we get that confidence, and I mean, for me, it even happened in the last 10 years of touring, when you meet other people that have that confidence and know that, kind of like Fena was saying, oh, for 1 week, we all fall in love. We're all at a festival. Hey, Fena, what's going on? Hey, Nadine from Germany. Hey, Lee from Canada. We all just can walk on stage and celebrate each other. And Monica,
yes, we're nice for a week.
We're not so clingy we're not so desperately clinging to each other, but we're just in service to each other. And like, how can I light you up? How can I make you laugh? What show are you doing? Let me go see that show. Like, I'm much more eager to watch shows at festivals than I am to go watch shows in Chicago, because in some ways, even with 8 different theaters here, it's going to be the same shit here. But if I can, I saw we were both in Amsterdam, and Fena had these crazy costumes and everything, and it's just like, what are you doing? And it's just like you're standing in the back of the room watching these guys do this beautiful show, and it's just like you're in a dream, and you can't see that in Chicago, and that's what I love.
Yeah, I think at a festival you have the same intention, right? We're all going to come together for the set period of time, and then we're going to go our separate ways. And we see this a lot with our training center. People want to stick together as they go through the training center. We tried to fight that for a while, and then just because we wanted people to get comfortable playing with multiple people, and then we just decided, why are we fighting this wave? It helps people, right, eliminate some of that hating of learning that Fena, maybe you like at least one thing's consistent. They've built some trust with each other, and they don't have to every class reestablish that. So like, okay, we'll let that go. And then they get out of the training center, and we have a conservatory team. We used to go to a house team, which seemed more long term than the conservatory team is short term, because once they're out of class, you start to see the people who are, I'm going to do this every day of my life. It's all I want to think about. It's everything I want to do. And then half the people are like, this is the thing I do once a week, twice a week if we have a show. And the development starts to get uneven. So we try to keep it, we get conflicting priorities. But the flip side of that was like, the groups that formed over the pandemic were so attached in a way, and they knew when the pandemic was over, they were that everything was going to change. But at our auditions, we had people who had met for the first time in person.
Amazing.
And everybody was crying at like a beautiful crying of like, thank you for being I'm going to cry now, just being my we made Joe cry. Surprise.
Not yet.
I'm not crying for once. I'm not crying.
Fena, our secret is we only are here to cry.
Yeah, who can make everybody cry?
Okay.
But they just buoyed each other up through that period of time. But I don't think anyone expected that they would stay online as an ensemble forever, So anyway, I don't know. I was just going on about connection and evolution. And it is. Festivals are just so free. You're like,
that's something. It was something that surprised me, the attachment and the connection in the online groups that I've been teaching. It's the same as in person. They don't get to hug, they don't get to climb over each other, but the connection is amazing, and I know that they are still in touch, and they want to. And I think there's this crazy pledge that we are going to meet in person somewhere in the world, because in this one other amazing thing about online teaching and performing is that you get to have people from all over playing together, and most likely they won't meet ever, but nobody will take away that.
Just get over
that,
it.
Yes.
It's not going to happen.
I thought I was the jaded one.
I'm realistic. No, I'm realistic.
They love each other,
you
but
know
most
me,
likely
Joe
it's
knows
not going to
me.
fucking happen.
I don't like improv has too much rainbows and sugar candy and unicorns. Too much of it. Too much.
I love it.
That's why we are nice for a week.
Yeah, we've made some changes that we've been announcing over the past week, and how we manage our house teams, and I'm really excited about where we landed, and I think it's going to be a healthier community overall. But there's also a lot of letting go that has to happen, and there were some pain points, and I've been finding myself saying over and over again, a healthy and a happy community isn't happy and shiny all the time. Part of making a healthy, happy community is actually being willing to have these conversations about things that are sometimes painful to let go and to grow out of, and to accept the changes. It's hard. If you're always just unicorns and clouds, I don't know that it's a genuine, authentic relationship.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, once you're close enough to each other where you know what's going on in between the ears, because we're all a little bit crazy, we're all a little bit tortured, we're all a little bit dark, then you can give each other shit. Because sometimes if somebody's in the darkness, the way to lift them out is to meet them in the darkness and then rise up. But if you start blowing rainbows at darkness, darkness is going to win. Yeah.
It's true. So Elise dropped a marker on my brand new carpet.
Oh, this is going to be a love story.
And the thing is, I could never be more upset about it than she. Yeah, I could never be more upset about it than she was. So all I've been doing is just giving her shit about it nonstop because.
Oh, look at our Elise. Oh.
Because when she told me it was fine, I was even more horrified. I'm like, it is not fine. Like, it is a permanent marker on a really nice fucking rug. But also, why did you give me a permanent marker while I'm standing on your rug?
Oh, wait, this is new. This blaming it on me. This is a new turnaround.
This just occurred to me just now. I'm just thinking that I'm standing here like, we were writing on a big Post-its on top of the rug.
It's because I got to live my life. You know, we all got to live our life. We can't let our lives be ruled by a carpet. That's all, you know.
Wow. Thank you. I'm not going to sleep again tonight.
And so now you've officially become a duo.
Yeah, exactly. So, Fena, let's talk about the kind of work you do that Joe was alluding to. Can you explain to us, and for people who don't know, what Joe's talking about when he says you do big productions and costumes and all kinds of spectacular things? What's it look like to see a show that you've produced?
I imagine he's talking about El Capricho del Rey, or King's Whim would be the translation. It's a duo show I have with Diego Ingol, an amazing physical improviser. And so basically, I'm the playwright of the court for the king, and he's the jester, he's the buffoon. And we have 30 minutes to create a play for the king. And if we don't succeed on writing it, we are killed, we are executed. So that's the premise of the show. And it's 30 minutes with a sand clock. So it's 30 minutes, no more, no less. And it's for me, it's really fun because when we decided we wanted to do this show together, it's because we wanted to play with our strengths. I love the idea of, again, getting to know how to do 1,000 things, but I also like to specialize. And I know that I like to write stories. I told you at the beginning, I like writing stories, and I like the dramaturgy behind the stories that we improvise. And Diego has an amazing physicality that I don't have. So basically, let's do this. And I'm the only one talking. He just rah, 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 rah. He talked like this. So it's everything physical for him. And it's I love how we communicate. And the bonus in Amsterdam was the only time we did it in English. I did it in English. Diego did it in the same language that he uses. But the greatest part is that he understands English, but not everything. So there were times in which he asked me in Spanish, what was I saying? So that was an extra layer that it was so beautiful and fun to play. And the costumes are basically, we are dressed as the playwright and the buffoon from a medieval court. Wow. It's another thing that we said from the beginning was we want to have costume. We hired someone to do the costume. We want to have props. We want to have a stage design. We want to have a light design too. So we invested all the efforts that we could in making it also look nice, so look the way we wanted to look. We could do the show dressed in black and it would also work, but it works better when we look this way. And And for me, it's like everything has to be a decision. We can be dressed in black in a black stage, and if it's your choice, great. If that's the only way you knew that you could improvise, that's not that great. Uh, so I'm all for the choices and these choices are only available to you if you open, if you travel, if you watch, if you consume culture in general, if you live in general, and then if you translate those things into what you want to stage. Because for me, it's not only the message that's for me is very important, but also how is the best. What's the best way I can find to code this message for you to decode it? I don't like to be straight. I don't like to be this. This is all there is. I want the audience to fill in the blanks. I want the audience to have different ideas. I want the audience to question. I want them to say, what? Maybe they meant something by using all the costumes in gray and black. Wow, they might mean something. And maybe we didn't, but they'll never know. So I like this idea of showing something that represents me, and in this case also Diego.
Joe, what was your impression the first time you started talking about it?
I mean, it was the only time I had seen them do that show. And I'm a person that likes a stripped down stage, very simple, and maybe most of my duo partners. I think you're like this too, Stacey. We show up and we just happen to match, and that's why we're duo partners.
Right.
That happens often. I feel like that happens so often.
It's
I'll show up at a show, and I'm like, why are we wearing the same thing?
Yeah, we'll always be like, it's all blue day, like even with the larger ensembles for showdown shows and stuff. But
and I don't even consider this, Stacey. Like, I'm not a person where visual impression moves me that much, but for some reason this show, and it was in, it was like in the little side theater. That's the other thing I love about festivals. You might have like a big theater, a medium theater, a side theater, but none of us care. It's like wherever it is, that's our place. And these guys were the costuming was so impactful that I couldn't deny it. And it's like, and it's I mean, Fena and I, we are similar and we are different. And but he has this flair about him, and I think we're both more verbal. So it's almost like it was almost like me and Felipe. Fena's a little bit more verbal. He's more clever. He's got, brain stuff going on. And then, is it Diego?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just there's an electricity between the two of them, that the costumes and the sets and the choices and the production, for me, it framed it in a way that if they would have done what I normally like to see, which is strip everything down, it would have not had the same impact. So I like the flair, and I give Fena shit for being Argentinian. And it's like, oh, Mr. Fancy, it's just jealousy. The costuming, the stage, the lights, it captures. It's the perfect frame for this energy, and you just go, it's perfect, Fena. So nothing but admiration. And I love the show. It was very fun.
Thank you. The one thing that I like is this electricity that Joe says is what I like is that they have these layers, because we are actually talking to each other or communicating with each other to create something, to improvise. So we are characters that have to create a story. So with very different energies and with very different energies in general. Because, for instance, Diego plays the buffoon, and he doesn't care if he lives or dies. He's beyond that. So my head is in stake. He doesn't care. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He's like, what? I had to explain him what might happen to him. So I get to build, and he gets to destroy. And that's amazing, because he keeps challenging me to no, he's right. This is not working this way. By destroying it from his character, it's given me feedback for the story I'm writing. And he also creates without words and gives me ideas for, okay, where does this story go? Where can it go? So I love how we communicate and that we like to play our part and to challenge the other to be the best in their part too.
This is making me geek out about something in particular. I'm having like a moment where I'm like, this is what I feel like I would want students to know. What do you see as the difference between that kind of like lovely Diego destroying what you're creating, the difference between that and a denial, for example, right? Like, how is that different in a positive way than a denial that we tell students don't say no, right? Like, don't reject the reality of what somebody just created. But here it's actually, you're saying that he's destroying what you're creating and it's beautiful. So can you talk about that? Like how you would define that difference?
Yeah. Yes. First, is that all rules that we teach, then when we grow up, we can avoid them and use them at our favor. But especially is the idea that if Diego is making this choice of making fun of my choice, he's right. I know that I have a better idea. And if I trust my original idea, I will tell them to shut up, keep doing your monkey things, and I will keep writing. So we have this opportunity of denying each other on stage, because we both know what's the best way, or think we know
you trust
what's
each
the best
other.
way. But of course, it's very tricky. And exactly. So it's basically we trust each other. And again, we trust our craft. And I would trust any physical decision that Diego makes, and he would trust any dramaturgic decision I would make. And this is a very dangerous tool. And you have to know how to use it and with whom to use it. If somebody else says that to me on stage, I will probably hit them and leave the theater.
Oh, Fena, I just love you more and more every time we spend time together. But just to be clear, he never undermines the reality of this premise that you are these characters who have to write this thing for the king. He's just tearing down your character's attempt at creating a specific story. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. For the last show we played, he usually does this, like, and he just stays like this, just lifting his leg like this, and what else? Oh, boring.
I love it. And I'm curious because I relate a lot to the things you're saying about how you play, as somebody who's a writer, and obviously Ruby Rocket speaks to my tendency to wanting to write a story and be the writer. And when I first started, I would get very frustrated that other people were not, like, the story is very obvious. I don't know why they see it, and they've ruined it. And I get super pissed off. And the best learning tool for me was Open Court, which was a show in Chicago at the playground. Each house team at the playground had to host a community show. Open Court is just open for anybody to get up and play, random long form teams. And when we moved to Portland and Open Curious, we started with Open Court, and it ran through the pandemic, been our longest running show. And I'm like, no matter how much money I spent in Chicago, I think the best lesson I got was at Open Court, where I had to accept anything anybody gave me. And I could walk on and be like, honey, I'm home. And somebody could respond that they were Captain Kirk and we were, in outer space. And I had to make that work. And then that became
Make
addictive.
home outer space.
It became my favorite thing, is to how do I yes the fuck out of no matter what anybody says or does, which is why I love Ruby Rocket. And I think I said this probably to each of you at some point, like the hardest thing for me in Ruby Rocket is when somebody tries to solve it for me. They start to panic that I might not be able to pull this all together. They don't know that I've been putting the pieces together as we go. We're 5 minutes away from the end when I'm going to tie it all together. And suddenly they step out and they destroy everything I had intended. And I have to rewrite the entire show. Yeah. And then I have to hit them and leave the theater.
Hit them and leave the theater.
That's the only way out.
But I'm like, I got to scramble and make it work.
I think there's also a thing between Fena and Diego that people have observed with us, Stacy, and that is there's a natural Stacy and I duo, and people have said it looks like you two are dancing because we naturally have an intuition about us where there's always a momentum of a dance that I think only on a subconscious level we're aware of.
Right.
And this is what I also saw with you and Diego. There's his denial or his giving you shit. It doesn't stop the dance. The dance will always continue. And I think it's it reminds me of Jules Munns in London said, duo improv is like a theatrical celebration of friendship. And so it's that intuitive, that thing that makes you friends, that makes you care about each other, that makes you love being on stage together. That is the dance that nothing can destroy. And so I just wanted to add that.
And just to tie it back to what we were saying earlier
for
about...
me, it was very...
Go ahead, Fena.
No, for me, it was like the moment we decided to work together. We already worked together in other projects, but it was like, if I choose someone to be my duo partner for a project and not for just, okay, let's play together for a few nights, so a few rounds, is let's create this project and invest everything our time in this, is someone I respect and love personally, that I respect professionally, and that dazzles me. I love watching him on stage. Sometimes I found myself just with the feather pen in my hand, just watching and trying not to laugh because he's so stupid that he surprises me. And that's hard when you are in this business for too long. He keeps surprising me.
And working together.
It's amazing.
That's awesome. I was just going to say that...
I love you, Diego. I love you.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to talk to him too next time. That tying back to music, In the Shadows of Motown is a documentary of the band that played behind all of the Motown stars. So there would be different, there'd be Diana Ross or there'd be Smokey Robinson, and they'd be the stars, but the same band played all the music, and they talk in that documentary like an improv ensemble, and they show up and they play together. And I've just been listening to Sleater-Kinney, which is a Riot Girl band that came out of the 90s that Carrie Brownstein from Portlandia is part of. And, that was my early Portland days. Love that band. And they have this program on Audible where they're talking about Sleater-Kinney and the origins of the band. And they were both in other bands, and the bands toured together, and they described the same chemistry with each other where they from the moment they met, they just both were like, there's something about this person. And then they had the same rivalries. So they started playing together, and both their bands were pissed that the two of them started playing together. And part of it is probably because they were threatened, right, by seeing that magical chemistry, and they knew that there was something special that we all crave. And the first time I met Lloyd Alquist, I could describe it that same way. I think it was in Miami at a jam, and it was just chaos. It was just a jam that turned into utter and complete chaos, and we just had this moment where we made eye contact with each other, and we're like, I know you. I just know you. I know your heart. I know what you're thinking. I know that you know what I'm thinking. Like, there's just some deep kindred soul underneath it all. That feeling is the feeling I chase every day in improv. I love it. Well,
unicorns.
Yeah, unicorns and rainbows, and slapping each other across the face. Well, so let's, before we go, Fena, where can people get copies of Status if they don't already know? How? Where do they go?
The easiest way is to search Status Improv, because like you said, there are no other improv magazines in the world, or not as long. Statusrevista.com, that would be the address where you can subscribe, and in any of the languages. And if not, Status Improv on Google, Facebook, on Instagram, you will find it.
Great. Anything special you're doing for your 10th anniversary that we should keep our eyes out for, or any shows you've got coming up that we should be looking for?
We are posting every day some videos from the people that were on the cover of Status. Stacy,
I know. I'll get you one.
I need your video.
I didn't mind.
Oh, I'll do mine right after
Yeah,
this.
you could. Yeah.
I'm showered today and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we're going to try and organize some talks with improvising from all over the world. I want to organize also a talk with the translators, because they are all improvisers, and
Oh, nice. Yeah.
how they work is amazing. And also, whenever you translate something, it's a 10% or 5% yours, because you get to reinterpret the meaning of things. And I think they're doing an amazing work for other communities to get to know each other, because if you only know your language, it's very hard to connect with other people that also only know their languages. So I think they're doing a great job. So I want people to connect with them and to recognize their work.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I hope you come to Portland soon when the world opens up, because you are somebody that from the day I met you, I was like, I want to play with that person someday, Fena. So hopefully you'll play with me. And
Me too. Me too. And I won't resolve the mystery of Ruby Rocket.
Well, if you do, I'll just have to handle it. Slap you and walk out. We'll know what happened.
I want to do a show that ends like that.
Yeah. All my stand-up friends lately are fascinated with the idea of ending their stand-up show without a big closer and just going, bye, and leaving. I think everyone's tired of the same old magnificent ending. It's old.
Screw a big finish.
Yeah.
Let's just leave at a lull.
Yeah, exactly. Let low point. Let the audience take care of themselves.
All right. End the live now.
All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Fena.
Yay.
We'll see you next time, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very much.
watching.
Tofama